Welcome back, everybody, to Two Crime Besties for another week. Thank you so much for joining us again. We're very excited to bring another episode.
Yes, we are. We are here, ready and raring to go.
Yep.
As nervous as we might feel when we first get started.
I know. I feel like at the start, when we first started the podcast, because we didn't know who'd be listening or how many people would be listening, I just sort of didn't think about it. But we've had such a great response and so many people listening and coming up to us. I'm like, oh, God, it's just a bit nerve-wracking now.
It really is. I see the analytics sometimes and you sort of just see them as numbers. Then as soon as it hits me like that, that's real people that are really listening, that I have no idea who they are. I don't know anything about them, but they're listening to us. I just kind of go, oh, shit.
It's more when people come up to you and they're like, oh, I've been listening to your podcast. One of the mums from school, one of Ollie's friend's mums, she mentioned the podcast when I bumped into her during the week this week, and she goes, oh, I know it kind of embarrasses you, so I won't say much more, but I'm loving it. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, I
so
love
thanks,
that.
Claire, if you're listening.
Yeah, I had a little gather at my office the other day, you know, with a bunch of my work colleagues all like talking about it, saying, I'm going to listen to the next one on the car ride home, or, you know, and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, oh, that's so lovely, but like so embarrassing at the same time.
I know. It's kind of really putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
But how's your week been? What's been happening?
Yeah, no, it's been a pretty good week. Yeah, pretty stock standard. As we just sort of like, you know, got to shoot through the calendar in my brain of like what has happened, because I feel like every day just like, you're like, where have I been? Who am I? Like, I just don't know where I am every day. But we're just saying we've got it's like the Father's Day stall this week for the kids at school, which is always fun, and finding out the things that they buy at those things. I absolutely love that for Mother's Day.
It's the best.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you remember my bell that I got for Mother's Day last, which was just amazing. I get this little ring bell that I get to tap on my bench for a drink that my boys bought me.
How successful has it been?
It's been moved upstairs so the boys can use it between their bedrooms. So.
Right. Say no more.
Yeah.
A true Mother's Day gift.
Oh yeah, but there's like no, in my family, like there is no getting rid of one of those gifts at all. Like you can't, it does not leave the house, because my eldest remembers every gift he gives.
Yes.
And if I happen to not, there was even this morning, was giving a bag to him to take for the Father's Day stall. And it was one of those, you know, those bags that fit inside itself to make a little pocket thing.
Oh, yeah.
That fit inside your bag handy. So I gave that to him. I said, you know how to use that, don't you? He goes, Mum, of course I do. I gave you one for Mother's Day.
Oh God, did
Eye
you?
roll. I'm like, oh, did you? Oh, it must have been this one, you know, that I'm handing him. And he's like, Mum, it's the pink one. And I had to do the whole like,
Do I have
the pink one? Where's the pink one?
He's going to ask me for the pink one.
I actually do the whole like, oh yeah, that's the one I carry in my handbag all the time that I use all the time. I'm like, I better find that friggin' thing and put it in my handbag.
We were just lamenting the fact, though, before we started recording, that for the Father's Day and the Mother's Day stalls, we have to have cash to give to the kids. Which I don't know about you. In fact, I do know about you. You never have cash. I never have cash. It is such a pain in the bum. Mm-hmm. Last week, I had to pick up some groceries for Mum and Dad, and I was giving it to them. And my dad's like, oh, and my mum and dad, old school, love a bit of cash transaction. And my dad always has cash.
Well, he's in the industry for
That's
cash.
It. Tradies. But I'm like, I hate it when people give me cash. Like, we went out for dinner recently and a friend of ours gave me cash, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? Like, I
Father's
never...
Day stall.
Well, no, because she didn't give me in the right denominations.
Yes.
But when I was giving the groceries, Dad's like, oh, here, I'll pay you for it. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Like, it was, you know, it wasn't that much. And then he goes, oh, no, come on here, I've got cash. I'm like, well, actually, if you've got two $10 notes, I'll definitely take that, because it'll save me from having to bloody go and get cash. And to get small notes out, you have to go to like a supermarket or something.
No, well, even then I did that thinking, you know, I'll go get cash out, and because I needed it. And so I went and bought something at the grocery store and went to the register and went, like, I'll get cash out while I'm here for the Father's Day stall. It would only let me get a 50 or a 20. So even
you have
then
to
it
actually
wasn't
go to a person.
Yeah. And so then I was
and
like,
there's no people at supermarkets
no,
anymore.
there was no one there, because I even turned around to the one person that was there and I said, oh, can I exchange that for some other notes? And he went, no, we don't do that. I was like, what?
Well, that's not very helpful.
No, so I walked out kind of going, I'll have to break that at some point, and totally forgot to.
Yeah.
So then, last night I said to my eldest, I was like, do you happen to have some money in your jar? And he goes, oh, yeah, I've got some $10 notes in there. I'm like, okay, can you grab one of those? And when I break this 50, you can then, I'll give you the $10 back, which thank God. So then I actually happened to find stashed in my wallet somewhere. I did have a $10 note for the other one. But yeah, I don't know how long that's been there for.
Yeah,
that was free money, because I really don't know how long that's been there.
Yeah, love that. Love that. I'm very excited to see what the kids come home with.
Love it. I don't know where the people who source that stuff get it from.
I know for sure it's Temu 100% because,
I'm fascinated.
all of my gifts that I got from my boys from the Mother's Day stall, I'm like, I've seen that on Temu. That's another Temu purchase. But, I mean, it's a fundraiser for the school, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you can totally understand.
Yeah. But I love that way that the kids will, think about it too.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, they know I drink.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Totally. Yeah, it's not. We've had coffee this morning. It's not quite after midday, so we haven't partaken in any other.
Yet.
Yeah. So the case we're talking about today, Meg, is Martin Bryant and the Port Arthur massacre.
Yeah. I think we need to pre-warn people of this episode. Even researching this one, it's a full-on story. If you are unaware of it, I don't know if anyone is unaware of it these days. It's
maybe some of our international
enough,
listeners might not be fully aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was big news when it occurred, but it's full-on. I mean, in the name being a massacre, it's not great. So we'll be talking about some fairly
heavy stuff. I know in researching this for myself, I actually found it really tough this week.
There's a particular moments in it that are really hard. Yeah,
we'll get to all of that though.
Yeah.
So as Meg said, just take this as a warning if this isn't something that you feel that you can listen to this week. So Martin Bryant, he was born on the 7th of May in 1967 to parents Carleen and Maurice. So he was the eldest of their kids. They then, I think about 4 years later, had his sister and her name was Lindy. I don't know a lot about her. There's not a lot about her and I can understand that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can't even imagine how she must...
I believe she's changed her name. She's, gone into the background very much so, which, I don't
I couldn't even
all.
find where she's living now or anything like that. So out of respect to her, I don't think there's any need to bring her up anymore or, for anybody to necessarily need to know anything further about her.
No.
The incident at Port Arthur or the massacre at Port Arthur took place on the 28th of April in 1996. So contextually around that time, I mean, where were we as a nation? Things were... I mean, they're very different to the way they are today. I know looking at old footage, seeing all the... to me, in my mind, 1996 doesn't seem like that long ago. But then you look at the footage and you think, oh, my God, TV used to look like that or cars used to look like that.
Yeah.
The police cars were those old, Commodores.
Yeah.
It was sort of a real trip back in time. But I really don't feel like it was that long ago.
No, well, because how old would you have been in 96?
11.
Yeah. So I was 15. I was in year 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really forefront of my mind. I remember this very clearly, this occurring and the day of and the following aftermath of it all. Yeah, very clearly. I think it was also because I think I was year 10. It was discussed literally I think that Monday when we came to school, I remember just walking into our first class happened to be, I think it was English or something like that. And we just didn't do any of our core work that day. We literally sat around with newspapers and stuff and picked apart a little bit I guess my English teacher probably did the right thing in terms of just went with it, used that as a way of, reading newspapers and being critical thinkers, but at the same time, looking at what happened and discussing it and talking about it as a whole class as to what this was and how we all, felt about it, which was really full on.
I mean, I think it took, weeks for the full story to even be able to be put together by the police once they got all of the witness accounts and the lead up to and all of that. But so this did happen on a Sunday. So the fact that, I mean, obviously it was prime news that evening and then in all of the newspapers and morning news shows and everything the following morning. And it hadn't really, probably when those newspapers went to print, it wouldn't have even been finished yet.
No, potentially it was still a siege,
at
that point in time. I think I remember vaguely that being the headline.
Yeah.
At Port Arthur or in Tasmania. It wasn't so much the massacre. Well, I mean the massacre was part of it, but that's where it was at, was still a siege.
Because it was still ongoing.
It was ongoing.
I think it finished on that Monday morning at around 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So I mean, what a horror of almost 24 hours for Port Arthur and the people of Tasmania. And so much so that even, I mean, there were police officers and special operations officers from Victoria who flew down. So it impacted us as a nation. And we will definitely get into this because it informed a lot of policy change for us in Australia and something,
law.
a long and that legacy continues to this day. The massacre was the deadliest massacre by a single gunman in Australian history. 35 people were killed and 23 people were wounded. Mm-hmm. There were children killed.
They ranged age from 3 and up.
3 and up. I guess in looking at it, I guess it's probably a good idea to start and talk about Martin Bryant and sort of lead in that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're just being really conscious that there's lots of podcasts out there on this topic, like short form podcasts. There's lots of news stories, lots of ways you can get access information about it. One particular website, Wikipedia, has a really solid rundown of the events of the day, and you can listen to podcasts that read that out to you or read it yourself, and it's very detailed. But I think we're just really conscious that we want to tell the story a little bit differently and give you maybe a little bit broader information than just what's already there for people to find.
That's it.
I think, starting with who Martin Bryant was is a really good place to start, because ultimately it's a horrific and tragic story of a human.
Yep.
Yeah, from the get-go, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you watched, in researching this, did you watch the interviews with his mum?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What was your take on her? So this is Carleen.
Yeah.
Maurice died before Port Arthur, but sort of not that long actually before Port Arthur. So we obviously haven't heard from him. So that's Martin's
Well, as
father.
Carleen put it, she said that it probably wouldn't have happened if he was still around, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Maurice, so all of the interviews that I've seen obviously are just with Carleen on her own. Yeah. And
I have a lot of empathy for her.
Oh,
definitely. I think she has chopped and changed a bit around whether she has an opinion of it was him that did this or whether it wasn't him that did this. And I can fully grasp that as a mother. You don't want to think that this is what your child could do. And obviously, unfortunately, there was conspiracy theorists involved, around this, and who've planted seeds with her that you would grasp at anything to go, my kid didn't do this. So I can fully empathise with that. But I know to this day she has changed that opinion, and does believe that he did do it. But it breaks my heart that she's raised a child, and in the best way she could, and that this is what he's done. To be linked to that is really hard.
It would be horrendous. I can't imagine. You have no control over what your adult child does. We know there are psychopaths in the world who've been brought up by very loving families who, have no inkling or, any idea that this was going to happen. But what I found interesting was that Carleen said that right from a really young age, Martin was troubled and there was something different about him. She said when he was around 2 years of age. So first of all, he was really late to start talking. He was very delayed in hitting those early milestones. Yeah. And very slow to develop language, and he also had difficulties forming relationships with people. She said that she noted that there was a time where, I think this was around 2 years of age, where he just stopped wanting any physical affection from her or from Maurice. So there was that sort of like stopped at a really young age. Yeah. And he was very destructive from a young age as well. He was like, he'd destroy toys. He was destructive. He'd go around wrecking stuff all the time.
Yeah. And now looking at it back from like the knowledge that we have now. Yep. And obviously has been assessed later in life, but in the 90s, it wasn't typical for kids to be assessed for various disabilities, etc. So they didn't know that there was possibly a way of knowing what this is and working with those needs that he had. So I think that's where this story gets really sad, because this is a boy who's gone through life without intervention and acknowledgement of his difference, which is not, it's not a bad thing, but to go through life thinking that that's his brain was, neurotypical, and as a family not knowing how to manage this difference is challenging. So, yeah.
It would have been so difficult for them to manage not having that context.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing we talk about now, like, you know, being able to know that there's ways that we can work with children with that are neurodiverse, you know, and then into adulthood and working with children, with adults who are neurodiverse, and how we can adapt things and accommodate different needs now is so important, because then we grow better humans in general, rather than, unfortunately for Martin not being diagnosed in any way or any intervention. He has grown up in a very isolated world in his own mind.
Definitely.
So, I mean, there was a quote here from, it was actually it wasn't in the, I thought it was in the transcript of the court hearing, but it wasn't. It was actually a news article I read, and that they were talking about that if we have a wider understanding of the kind of brain development and psychiatric issues that can lead to such catastrophic disasters, maybe we can avoid them.
Absolutely. And I strongly believe in this case that this could have been avoided had he received the appropriate supervision, intervention, medication and counselling.
Yeah.
And I think what Kathleen says with Maurice passing away when he did, I definitely think that had an impact on this too, because Maurice really kept Martin in check and was it must have been exhausting for him, but he was actively controlling him on a day-to-day basis to keep him in line and to keep him focused on something other than. But the thing that I do find interesting is that Maurice introduced him to guns as a way of focusing his attention to something that he could be doing. But then Martin, being who he was, he's taken that to the nth degree.
Yeah.
So when Maurice gave him his first air rifle, he would lie down on a creek trail and literally shoot at people going past. He'd shoot at birds and torture them if they didn't die immediately. There were a lot of behaviours there that were potentially
red flags.
Absolutely red flags.
If it wasn't controlled in some way, and which obviously his dad was able to do.
Yeah.
But with him not being around, and that wasn't, I think, the forethought in his mind of what if I'm not here one day?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to live life thinking like that.
No.
But yeah, I think it was obviously a great outlet for him, but at the same time, it led to something greater than that.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
He became obsessed with guns.
Yeah.
When he was a little kid, he was setting firecrackers alight and he set himself on fire, and he ended up in the hospital for a week or so. And the local TV news interviewed him, and go onto YouTube and have a look at that video.
That clip says so much.
It says so much.
Yeah.
The interviewer, the journalist, asks him, so now that you've done this to yourself, will you never play with firecrackers again? And he's like, oh, no, I will. There was no question.
Oh, but haven't you learnt your lesson?
And he's like, no.
Actually, he goes, yes, I've learnt my lesson, but I'll do it again.
Oh, that's it.
And that's that intellectual disability there of not connecting the two, of learning a lesson that you don't do it again because you get hurt. It's that I've learnt my lesson. It's great fun. I'll do it again. It was awesome. Yes, I got burnt, but it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was. I mean, and that was something else about him, was that he was so typical in every other way. It was one of those. His disabilities were not visible in that sense.
Yeah.
People had expectations of him to meet the standard of what would you consider normal. And so, but his brain was not functioning at the same level as children his same age, and into adulthood then not. He was functioning at 28 at approximately about the age of 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So an 11-year-old with a fair bit of money, because of things that we can go into, and also access to firearms. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. He had no impulse control. He just acted on every whim without thought of consequence. And again, this is skipping a little bit further ahead, but when you see him interviewed post the massacre, you can see that he has no concept of what he's just done or the ramifications of it. So, he was suspended from school when he was in high school because of lots of different reasons, a lot of behavioural issues. The psych assessed him as having an IQ of 66, so it's a low IQ.
That would qualify him for a special development school.
Absolutely.
At this point in time.
I believe it did back then too, but there was no access there.
This is it.
There was a special program at the high school, which he did attend, and he was enrolled in that special program, but it wasn't like a special development school.
The intervention that he could have accessed.
That's exactly right.
And look, part of that would be Tassie is a state of Australia, but it wouldn't have had all of what would be available living on the mainland necessarily in that sense. Their education system is fabulous. But yeah, I dare say it wouldn't have been as big and accessible in terms of that down in that around that area.
There just wasn't the population or the demographic necessarily there to sustain, you know, a model like that.
Exactly.
When he was suspended from school, he was assessed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist actually.
Yep.
And he was diagnosed with having schizophrenic tendencies.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. That was a single intervention at the time. It's not like he then went to see that psychologist ongoing at that point in his life.
Yep.
And again, I think that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, later on, more diagnosis and more closer looking at him, they found that there weren't schizophrenic tendencies, but they found there was multiple other things going on for him. But on the surface, it could have looked schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But looking deeper, there was a lot more going on for him than than that. I shouldn't say just, because that's something to, you know, for people. Many people live with schizophrenia, but don't also commit massacres. So it doesn't necessarily. It sounds horrific having schizophrenia, but it's actually a manageable
condition.
It's diagnosed, etc. So that's really interesting. That's what they sort of focused on.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of the sign of the time though as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think these days we know so much more about it. It's so much more out in, you know, in society. Like everybody, it's a lot more talked about. There's not the same stigma that there was back there. I'm sure there is absolutely still stigma for people with these conditions, but it's not so much as back in the 90s. At least people are talking about it. We all know neurodivergent children and adults, and we accept them as part of our community. And, you know, I think you and I have discussed this before. Kids at primary school these days are so accepting of the way people are, and I love that, because when I was at school it wasn't like that.
No.
If you were a bit different, you were picked on and you were teased, or there was something, you know, everyone would be like, oh, what a weirdo. But I find, especially with my older son, you know, he's 10 years old now, I love the way he just accepts people for who they are. It really...
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. And I think that's
weirdness. It's
great.
make the world go around. Like, you know, we need more of it. And they're so accepting of it and realising that they're the traits that actually get change in the world, you know? Yeah.
We need all types.
Yes.
Yep. So I guess when Martin was a teenager, his parents were having a lot of trouble controlling him. So he's going through all these hormonal changes with the brain of a much younger child. He became a bit of a nuisance around Port Arthur.
Yeah, he was really known as just doing some fairly mischievous but nuisance type things. Yeah. So he would there was one. It turned out to be his lawyer in the end, which they worked out later on. But he would go to their house and he was selling rabbits. He'd go and shoot rabbits, and then he'd try and sell them to the local people. But and he'd knock on people's doors but he'd like peer inside and want to, you know, just that. He didn't have boundaries, and so he would like make people feel quite uncomfortable with how he would interact, because people had an expectation of, say, a 10, 11-year-old child standing at their door, but behaved more like a 3 or 4-year-old, let's say, you know, of like kind of like going, well, what's in your house? Like,
I want to come in.
Yeah. And people found that very confronting and a nuisance. So they really just veered away from him, which that's got to be really impactful.
Absolutely. He'd bang on people's doors though until they opened the door.
Yeah.
Like for minutes. He'd just be like bang, 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 incessantly, knowing they were home. They obviously didn't want to answer the door to him, but he wouldn't let up.
No. Because later on that grew into, because he ended up with a fair lot of money, he would travel a lot overseas, because people on a plane sitting next to you can't walk away from you. They can't exit the conversation. They're stuck with you. So
you kind of have to be a bit polite, don't you? Because if you're stuck sitting, and he'd go long haul flights.
Yeah.
And some of the time he would actually fly to just then turn around and fly back home again.
Yeah.
So he must have been craving that company, and he couldn't. He felt like he couldn't get it
had
any other way.
hostages there to listen to him and listen to him talk. Yep. So. Yeah, I mean, we'd all, you know, not want to sit next to him on a plane necessarily.
No way. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm sure plenty of people did the whole, like, oh, I'm going to sleep now.
Yeah.
He's definitely a very interesting person all round in that sense.
A psychologist who assessed him at one point for a disability pension. So in Australia, if you're unable to work due to a disability, you can be assessed for a pension. So you get it's quite a small amount of money each week, but it's enough to sort of sustain a very basic lifestyle.
Yeah.
And he was assessed by a psychologist who did say that there was no way he would ever be able to hold down a job because he rubs people up the wrong way. So even a basic entry-level position that potentially he could have intellectually was intellectually capable of, socially he wouldn't have been able to.
No.
And so he was given the pension. But to kind of bolster that a little bit, he decided to start his own lawn mowing business, Anyway, so he'd go and incessantly knock on people's doors and say, do you want me to mow? I'll mow for you. Come on, I'll mow your lawn. And one day, just by pure chance, I guess, he knocked on the door, woman by the name of Helen. Mm-hmm. Now, unbeknownst to him at the time, so Helen lived in a mansion, but it was incredibly dilapidated, overgrown. She had something like 40 cats and 12 dogs or something like that. So she was a bit of an eccentric woman herself. So Martin was 19 at the time. I think she was like 54 when they first met. And she was like, yep, you can mow my lawn. That didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to because Martin couldn't quite figure out how to use the lawnmower, or something happened to the lawnmower. And so she then decided that she'd allow him to help her look after the animals and sort of, help clean up after them. But this developed actually into what I can only gather as a platonic friendship. From what I can see, there was no sexual element to it, although they did come across like that. They would go out into the community like they were boyfriend and girlfriend or mother and son. Like it's a really odd relationship.
An odd relationship, yeah. But there's no evidence of it being like a sexual relationship whatsoever. I mean, she's quite senior to him. But she didn't have any children.
No.
So I think she just really felt for him and really took him in.
I wonder whether she saw something of herself in him. Like she was quite a recluse. She lived in this mansion with her mother at the time. She was actually heir to a portion of the Tattersalls' fortune, so she was incredibly wealthy.
Very wealthy.
But had never worked real. I think she did have a job at some point in her life, but for the majority of her adult life, she didn't work, and she was supposed to be caring for her mother who was living in the house. At one point, I think suggestions have been made that it was Maurice who might have reported them to the health authorities, but they reported this dilapidated house to the health authorities. They turned up and they basically declared that the house was just a complete biological hazard because apparently it was just so disgusting. There was like animal excrement everywhere. And they took both Helen and her mother, who I think her mother's name was like Hilda or something, I can't remember, but they took them to the hospital and they x-rayed the mum, and she'd actually had a broken hip and it hadn't been treated. So all that Helen had done was moved her from the bedroom upstairs where she had a bed into the kitchen because she could no longer get up and down the stairs, and she was sitting upright in a sleeping upright in a kitchen chair.
Oh, I did not know any of this.
For what was potentially up to 2 years. They don't know for sure the timing of it. Once insane. They got her into a nurse, so she'd been in hospital, they got her all better, they sent her off to a nursing home, and she died not that long after.
Well, that's interesting. I sort of thought you were actually going to say like, oh, she came, did a full 180 and
she was in her 90s at the time.
Yeah, wow.
But very malnourished and it was not a good living situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. That's crazy.
So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea as to how Helen was living. With all this, so actually at that time, Maurice took some long service leave and helped Helen and Martin clean up the house, and then Martin moved into the house shortly thereafter. With Helen. What did they do? My God, what a time they had after this. So they went on spending sprees. They would buy clothes and shoes. In the space of 2 years, they bought 30 brand new cars. I can't find what they did with them. I don't know whether they gave them away, whether they kept them. I don't know.
I know Martin Bryant had 2 cars at the time of the massacre, which both were originally.
Well,
but that's 2, not 30.
Martin couldn't own a car because he didn't have a driver's license.
Well, yeah, so they were registered in his name. One of them was, not the other one. One of them wasn't registered.
Okay.
The other one was.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he didn't have a driver's license. But yeah, he had 2 cars at the time, which I understood were from Helen. But 30.
So yeah, I couldn't find what they did with them. But can you imagine, like, and they were all brand new. They just
But they were just regular cars. It wasn't like they were going around buying like, specifically.
No, they were like Volvos and Commodores. There was nothing. I don't think there were any. It's not like they were like buying these hotted up collectibles or anything like that.
They were just regular. Go down to the local dealership and buy a car that you're going to, the family car. It was, okay, interesting.
And they'd eat out every day as well. Like they'd go to local restaurants and cafes and eat out every day. And the cafe owners, I think, didn't really like it when they came around because they'd be wearing really odd clothes. They'd put people off, put other customers off because of the way they were dressed, the way they spoke. It was all just a bit odd.
Yeah. That's really super weird.
It's super, super weird. So Helen came to an untimely end because of at Martin's hand. Well, it's actually never been proven.
Yeah.
I mean, we know incidents like this had happened in the past. That's been proven. Mm-hmm. So they'd be driving along country road and Martin would yank the steering wheel and like make Helen swerve off the road. So much so that she actually confessed to a friend that she'd never drive more than 60 kilometres an hour because
she was worried about what
he would
do.
potentially do that. And that goes back to that sort of impulse control, not thinking through the consequences.
That childlike brain in an adult body.
This will be fun.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there was an incident where this is what we think has happened, that he's done that and she's swerved and rolled the car, and in that she died. Mm-hmm. Martin sustained some really significant
seriously
injuries
injured
at the time.
Yeah.
He sustained a neck and a back injury. Again, don't know specifics, but he was in hospital for 7 months after that.
Very
hospital and rehab.
Hospital stay, yeah. Yep.
So that's like, that's horrible. So he's gone from living with this woman. She's kind of become his family. They spent all day, every day together.
Yeah.
He's then gone through this hospital stint. He's come out the other side, the sole beneficiary of Helen's fortune.
Yeah.
So I think it was something like $550,000 in cash.
Yes.
Plus all of her assets. So I don't know how many cars they still had in their possession at the time, but the house, they'd also bought a farm.
Yeah, there was a farm. There was a couple of different properties. I can't remember them. There was a cottage. A couple of properties. There was the farm because he did end up selling that. So
I believe the assets were well over $1 million in 1996.
Yeah.
So a lot of money.
Yeah.
And his mum and dad were quite sort of worried about that.
Yeah.
So they actually petitioned the state trustees to take over management of his money because they wanted this money to last him
forever,
for the rest of his life. He'd had control over it. Well, for the very short period of time he did have control over it, what was he buying? It's like bloody surfboards that cost, so much money.
Yes.
And he didn't even
surf.
Them.
He never surfed.
He liked the surfer boy image and he'd pop the surfboard on the roof rack of his car.
Tell everyone he was going to go surfing.
Yeah, but he'd just sit on the sand. Like, I don't think he ever got in the water, didn't like being in the water.
No.
Just liked the look of it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think, did he have a boat?
He had a dinghy. Like it was a blow up, like I think motorized, but like a blow up dinghy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he did buy things. He had a lot
and then I guess his parents would have been like, this is not going to end well.
Yeah.
So good on them for doing that.
Absolutely.
And for taking the responsibility away from themselves as well. It's not like they wanted to manage his money.
No, it wasn't about them going, let's get a piece of this pie ourselves. Because they were quite, I think they weren't exactly, they weren't on the bones of their butts either. Like, I think they were fine financially. So it wasn't that they were trying to get their hands on the money. It was about making sure that Martin had a future and not going to just get rid of all this money straight away and just buy random things, which, I mean, Helen kind of instilled that in him, really. So I think very well done on their behalf to do that. But yeah, still meant that he had plenty of just, cash to dispose of daily. Yeah.
He became more eccentric around this time too in the way that he dressed and the way that he presented himself out in the community, which it just made people sort of, more wary of him, he'd be wearing like cravats and bell-bottom suits and top hats and just weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's when you think about your kid and we used to walk out with them all wearing, Spider-Man costumes and stuff all the time and sit and have a coffee at the cafe with Captain America.
Yeah.
It's kind of that
Hulk.
version of it, isn't it? Like really, but just in an adult version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the point now where Maurice was becoming more and more depressed, I think. So this is Martin's dad. He had been actively managing Martin for such a long time, and I think it took its toll on him. He was increasingly dependent on alcohol and I believe other drugs. Like I think he was on antidepressants.
I did read that, I think, yeah. Yeah.
And so when he was helping out at the farm was Martin getting ready to sell it at that point, or was that not yet?
He sold the farm.
So Maurice, in preparation to help him for that, then it must have been around that time. He went there on his own for a weekend to try and get stuff tidied up, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess at some point decided to take his own life. He put a weight belt around, like a diving belt, around his neck and around his waist. He took, out of a packet of 30 antidepressants, he took 18, I think. They found alcohol in his system post-mortem as well, and he went and drowned himself. There were 4 dams on the property. He went and drowned himself in one of the dams. So what actually happened was somebody came to the farm was looking to buy something and knocked on the door, no answer, and then saw that there was a note pinned to the door and all it said was call the police. Oh. And so this young man called the police, and it took the police 2 days to find him because they assumed he was on the property given the note.
Yes.
And Maurice the night before had actually phoned his wife and his daughter to say, well, basically his wife says, Carleen said that it was a really strange phone call because she expected him to call and say, yep, I've arrived.
Yeah.
But at the end of the phone call, he said, I love you. And she said he just never said that on the phone.
Yeah.
And their daughter had a very similar story. So the police kind of, I think, knew that they were potentially looking for a body, and they found him in one of the dams. So again, another blow to Martin, because really Maurice was his only ally. I think it's hard to get a read on Carleen and where she was at this time, but I really feel like she'd kind of potentially distanced herself a little bit from Martin because she just couldn't cope, and quite understandably.
Yeah, I got that vibe too. It's never said anywhere or anything, but because I actually started thinking, were her and Maurice separated? Because the way things were written, it was at points where I kind of went, well, maybe they were, like, because it was Martin and Maurice, and then there was Carleen. Like there was a distance there for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were still absolutely together.
Yeah.
But the way things, I don't know, just it's the way the vibe it sort of had around it was very separated. Yeah. Maurice was clearly the carer of Martin.
Oh, it's really sad.
Awful, but yes.
And as you said, I feel like this was, well, in fact, it absolutely was another turning point for Martin.
Well, they certainly believe that was fairly much a trigger for what happened at Port Arthur.
Yeah.
Martin obviously felt very much like other people had taken his dad away from him, and out of his life. There was some other incidents where he sort of felt that people had maybe done the wrong thing by his dad, and so that's where this all sort of triggered this action.
Yeah.
So one of those things that he felt really strongly about was that his dad wanted to buy a cottage, a holiday,
like an
Airbnb, but
just
not back
B&B.
in the 90s. Yeah, just a B&B, like the regular style, called Seascape, which was a beautiful spot down in not far from Port Arthur, on the highway into Port Arthur. And so his dad had wanted to purchase that. However, some other people didn't want to sell it. They wouldn't sell no matter how much money he was offering them. And so what truth is behind that in terms of...
I actually thought that the place was on the market.
Sorry, you're right.
It
There was
took
another
Maurice a little while
Yes.
to get the money together. Like, he
Yes.
just didn't have enough liquid assets at the time. And so this other couple, oh my gosh, I've written their names down. I can't believe I've just it's escaped
David
me.
and it's Sally, but her real name is...
I'll find it. It's in my notes somewhere.
Yes.
But they bought the house sort of in the interim while Maurice was trying to get the money together for this house. They just went in and bought it. And the real estate agent said, well, basically, like, you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, yeah.
These people had the money ready to go. Of
That's
course, we were going
right.
to sell it to them.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So the Martins was their surname.
Yes. Yeah, I know. That
That
was
got confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the Martins.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly sure it's Sally, but that was her, like, she went by Sally, but she had a full name of something else.
Yeah.
So, but there was another block of land even that they did own in the local area that his dad wanted to purchase, but that's what they didn't. They wouldn't sell that. They was basically like, no, we're not selling that. That's not for sale. So there was another cottage not far from Seascape, and he was like, well, if I can't buy that because you've got in and purchased it, how about if I buy that off you, and that way I can have one too. But they were like, we weren't selling it. We don't want to sell it. No matter how much money you offer us, we don't want it.
I see.
We want to keep that. So, because it was quite a stretch of land that they had in that area. There was sort of those two hits, I think, from the same people.
Okay.
That Martin really assumed that was what triggered his dad wanting to commit suicide. He sort of felt like that was the nail in the coffin of like, well, if I can't have that land, then I'm really, I'm no good to anyone. And that's where the depression really hit hard.
Yeah.
So whether that's way his dad was thinking or not, I mean, we'll never know. He didn't leave any more of a note other than call the police. So you can only assume. And obviously that's what Martin has assumed. That's what his dad felt. And who knows really at the end of the day. But that is what they basically believe has triggered him for the actions of the 28th of April.
Yep.
So I guess we're
at the day.
We're at that, which is like, full on.
At the time, Martin had a girlfriend and she'd stayed the night before, and her account is that he set his alarm and she thought that was a bit weird because he set it for 6:30 in the morning. Now, he had no job, no responsibilities, no commitments, nothing to get up for. So she thought it was a bit weird. They got up.
Did you hear how old she was, his girlfriend?
No, tell me.
16. Fuck. So I think she may have even been 17 by the time this took place because they were together for about 8 months. Mm-hmm. I know she was definitely 16 when they first started dating and he was 27. So he was 28 when this occurred. So maybe she had a birthday also. So maybe she was 17. But yeah.
Wow. I did not know that actually. Oh, that poor girl. Wow. But apparently they had breakfast. They had some cereal, toast with honey and a cup of tea, had a shower, and she went back to her place.
She went to go see her parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, well, what happened next, Meg?
So, the morning of was... so he did quite a few things this morning after leaving the house. He went to... First of all, he drove and went to like a service station, a number of places. And in that situation, he clearly had a bit of a plan in mind. Because
I feel like he had a plan, but he couldn't... It's like he remembered it one step at a time.
Yep.
And so, like, he went to 2 service stations. The first one he bought a lighter.
Which he went in and then went, do you sell lighters?
Yeah.
You do? Great. Then went back to his car and got the money to go in and buy the lighter. Like,
again, that's a really, like, it's an odd...
His whole actions throughout this, I mean, are odd, that's for sure. But, it was quite methodical in what he was doing. It was like almost like he mapped out every part of it. But one of his like interactions in that morning, because so many people that have been given evidence in terms of, well, not evidence because there wasn't a trial, but have given their side of the story to police, that it's sort of, he had these interactions which people noted, they remembered it because it was so odd. And one of them, he even said to a guy just about the day as he was chatting, he was like, well, you should go and have a coffee down at Port Arthur later. Like, I just find that really creepy.
That's sick.
That he knew, like, and this is prior to him getting anywhere near Port Arthur, which I mean, we're talking about, I was trying to actually look it up. I forgot to look it up, how far he travelled exactly. But it wasn't.
I think it was like 25 kilometres.
Yeah, it wasn't next door. Like, it was a bit of a drive down the highway he had to go.
Yep.
And through past Eagle Hawk Neck and all that sort of thing. That it's quite a windy bit of road. It's on the coast. So he obviously knew early on that's where his ultimate goal was to get to the cafe at Port Arthur. But for what reason? Other than what because he obviously had in his car already. He had his guns all in the car, ready to go.
So I think the week before he'd gone to Myer, which is a department store, an Australian department store, with his girlfriend, and they'd bought a sport bag, and he told her that he needed it for squash, even though he didn't play squash.
Yeah.
And he bought this bag, and he was like, it has to be able to hold a lot of weight. And she sort of thought, weird, but
okay, mate.
Okay, whatever. And so he bought this sports bag, and then turns out that's what he used to carry the guns and ammunition for the. So this had been, if you go by that, at least a week in the planning.
This is it. Yeah, that he knew he was going to put his guns and things in there.
Yeah.
To take wherever he was going to go.
Yeah.
So after his stops along the way of the service stations, etc., he ended up at Seascape. Now
can I just interject there for 1 sec?
Go for it.
After stopping at the 2 petrol stations, he actually stopped at a supermarket and just bought tomato sauce.
Oh, yes. What was with that? And they even asked him about that in the police interviews, and he was like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, he couldn't. He had no answer. He was like, I don't know, just bought tomato sauce. Like,
Yeah.
it was like there was no rhyme or reason for it. Like, I can understand. Obviously, at one of the petrol stations, he bought gasoline, like a canister of gasoline. The other one, the lighter, and we know he then used that in the sort of sequence of the crime.
Yeah.
Tomato sauce.
Yeah, I don't know. What does he think he was?
Yeah. Was he like, I'm going to buy a pie while I'm down there, but there is no way I'm paying 20 cents for sauce.
Well, they have the shit cheap brand sauce. I want the real good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Or my other thought was he going to use it to, I don't know, fake something somewhere? I don't know, like use it as fake blood. That was my only other way.
I hadn't thought about
bringing
that.
in the blood, bringing in the tomato sauce, because I was like, wow, that's weird.
So weird.
But I don't think you can ever understand how his brain works really fully. No. Yeah. So after his odd purchases, he headed to Seascape, which is where the Martins were living, and that we believe that he entered that house and he killed them at that point.
Yeah, so this was at 11:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
So to give you a bit of context on time, he shot the wife first, and then he stabbed the husband to death.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's drawn pictures of this event. He's done in the police interviews, etc., and with his lawyer and all that sort of thing, he drew these pictures of what he did, which is something in that actually, I'll say it now. So the pictures he draws, there's these little stick figures and drawings of and very detailed drawings of the events of the day. And I would love a psychologist, somebody to come and tell me the answer to this, because it did just stand out to me. It was never mentioned in one of must have been the Channel 7 one, I think it was, that I saw the pictures in. So when he draws himself at Port Arthur, he is black, and all the victims that he draws are red. Now, to me, that makes some sort of sense in terms of colour coding of things.
Totally.
The Martins, however, when he draws that scene, he is red and the Martins are black. I don't know.
Psychologist hat.
Please bring it.
Just going to chuck that on quickly.
Yeah.
My very, very incredibly amateur psychologist hat.
Yeah, I've got my thoughts, but I want...
Is it that he felt like he was a victim to the Martins?
That's what... that was my take of it.
Okay.
I was like... and I'd love someone to tell me, I'll get over it, you got no idea, or, yep, you're on the money. It really stood out to me. As I say, nothing was mentioned of it. It was just, here are the pictures in the story that I was watching. But it just jumped off the page to me, jumped out at me of this real difference of clearly was colour coding.
Yeah, and he definitely felt like they were victims to this, and that the Martins were like bad people because they'd taken his dad's dream away from him.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I just found that really fascinating.
It is.
Anyway, so Seascape, that's occurred. So they're already passed away, unfortunately, the Martins. He leaves Seascape and heads further down the road. And heads towards Port Arthur. He arrives at Port Arthur at a roundabout. It was around about 12:30, 1:45, I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
And he goes and goes to the cafe there, the Broad Arrow Cafe. There's 2 cafes on the site. Have you been to Port Arthur?
No, I never have. Have you?
Yeah, I have. I went back in 2008. I think I was there.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously after all of this occurred, which so because it's a tourist destination, and at that time purely a tourist destination in terms of it was the old penal colony. It's fascinating to go and see the space. It's beautiful. These ruins of buildings now, like kind of that you can go in and sort of get an idea of how they were used. It was obviously that they used to send all the real bad cooks down to Tassie and to live there. It obviously doesn't operate anymore. Yeah, but it's beautiful, like jetty and things where you can catch a ferry in as well around from Hobart, or you can come in via road. Like it's a really picturesque place and very interesting to see. Not a tourist, not saying like that's. Yeah, anyway.
I mean, it's a really popular part of Tasmania. I think it attracts something like 250,000 visitors a year.
Yeah, well, on the day there were about 500 people on site, which is a pretty average Sunday viewing at that time. In that time.
It was a nice sunny day. It was about like 15 or 16 degrees, I think. So, people were out and about, wandering around, having a good look.
Yeah.
Having lunch at the cafe.
It was just the tail end of the lunchtime mad rush when he's arrived. So the cafe was still quite full and busy, and he goes in and orders himself a coffee and something to eat, and goes and sits outside with his big bag, his big sports bag with him, and he sits down outside. And people say that he sat there and sort of almost talked to himself, like talking to other people, but talking to himself. And he commented on wasps, that there were lots of wasps around, or either there weren't enough wasps around.
There's a lot of wasps around today.
A lot of wasps around today.
Quote. Yep.
And also he commented around that there weren't many Japanese tourists at the site at the time. Mm-hmm. And the reason this is quite significant really is that his girlfriend also commented to the police that he often spoke about wasps and Japanese tourists. They were topics of conversation that were quite obsessive to him. So clearly a link there of this is who he was, who it was that was there.
Just really quickly, a WASP is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
I thought you meant wasps as in like European wasps as in... No. Oh, I read that entirely wrong then, did I?
Yep.
I thought he meant wasps as in genuine wasps.
No. Like he was against Protestants for some reason.
Oh, yep. Okay. How naive of me. I know I got the Japanese tourist one, but I assumed that he meant genuine like insects.
No.
There you go.
Yep.
But they were definitely topics of conversation for him.
I think there was a patron at the Broad Arrow Cafe who survived, and he said he'd heard him make this comment. I think he's the one who actually said in his statement that Martin had said, there's a lot of wasps around today. And he thought the same thing. He thought, wasps, like, it's cool. It's a cool day. Like, I don't think wasps are around at this time of year.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until a lot later that, gathering the backstory and all of that, he said it was years and years later that he was like, right. That's where he was going with that.
Interesting.
I don't know how you can tell by looking at someone that they're a Protestant, but...
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm lost on that one.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Anyway.
All right, moving on. So he's finished his coffee and his food and has walked himself back into the cafe. And unfortunately, this is where he sits down at a table in the cafe, casually opens his bag and pulls out. Now I'm going to pull this up because I'm not a gun person.
I think we said this in our last episode too. I've got no idea. I had to write it down as well. And even when I wrote it down, I had to
Well, I don't even know how to read it because
I know.
He had 3 guns in the bag. And what he pulled out first was the Colt AR-15 .223 semi-automatic rifle.
Yes.
He also had in the bag an SLR semi-automatic .308 rifle, a semi-automatic Daewoo 12-gauge shotgun, and... this blows my mind, 150,000 rounds of ammunition.
And you wonder he needed a really strong bag.
Yeah.
How heavy would 150,000 rounds be?
I can't even imagine how heavy the 3 guns would have been, let alone the ammunition. Yeah, that's
surely he couldn't have carried that all in one bag.
That blew my mind when I read that number. Like...
I read that same number and I was like, well, maybe that's a typo.
This is it, because it was that I read it in multiple places that I went,
15,000 rounds you would think is a lot.
Yeah.
And where did he get all of this ammunition?
Well, I mean, I guess it's why what happened afterwards is the right decision, because how come someone can access that much ammunition? letting someone purchase that amount to go, yeah, that seems legit.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah.
You need that. Any farmer needs that many rounds. Anyway, God. So pulls out his AR-15 and starts to shoot. Now, I won't go through exactly the events of who was shot at when and all that. So, because as we say, you can literally go to Wikipedia and it goes through shot by shot. But something that really stood out to me was that there was 29 rounds fired in the cafe in approximately 90 seconds. And those 29 rounds, he killed 20 people, which just absolutely blows my mind.
And seriously injured 15.
Yeah.
And the people who were injured, because apparently that shotgun can fire up to 600 metres away, like a distance of 600
these were all
metres.
close range
and this is in a
shots.
tiny little cafe. Like it looks, from the photos I've seen, it looks really small. A lot of the injuries and even some of the deaths were because the bullets had ricocheted off like
Other people or
or like walls and whatever.
I was actually reading the transcript from the court hearing when he pled guilty, and they were going through like that. There was, I think it started out as 70 odd counts, right? But what they decided between the judge and the lawyers was that because many of the counts were like what they called one action with multiple effects. So then what they did was for legal reasons, whatever, they narrowed down how many counts he was going to be charged with, convicted of, because and they, instead of naming it as saying there was one cause but there was multiple counts, it became a single count with multiple actions.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So as in like the one bullet that might have like killed somebody and then ricocheted and
injured someone
hurt
else.
someone else.
Yeah.
That was counted as one sort of event.
One count, one event. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a legal reason why they needed to do that.
Sure.
But, because I don't know, I can't remember exactly what the judge, it's all in the transcript as to why the judge decided to do that. And the lawyers did all agreed that, that's where it should be done.
Yeah.
So it was more counts that he originally was charged with, but by the time they got to conviction, they actually narrowed it down. I think there was about 8 or 9 incidences of where it was one person, one shot, but one killed and one injured, like kind of situation.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God, just sickening. I mean, these people had nowhere to go. They were trapped in this space with a huge rifle that he had. I know that people have sort of said, he had to have been some sort of really great shot to have killed that many people that quickly. But in that small space, I mean, many of these hits were so close range, they had no chance whatsoever. They were trapped rats, literally, in there. People were trying to get out, and there were locked doors and things, just part of being in businesses and things like that, and trying to get out. It just would have been absolutely horrific. I can't even imagine. There were people further away from the cafe who were hearing these gunshots, who then were like, "What is that?" Some people thought that it was a show, like that they were, reenacting things from the penal colony back in the day, and started heading towards the gunshots. Because we live in a fairly peaceful society, generally speaking. So that, that naivety of like walking towards it to go, oh, what's interesting and happening? And then they realised that this was not okay and had to then exit and get out. So, and he headed from the cafe to a gift shop. Again, very small space. Shot more people there. Headed out from the cafe and the gift shop and towards there were coaches of buses
and
parked out the front.
And a lot of people hiding behind the coaches to kind of take shelter.
Everyone trying to hide. Everyone trying to, he entered onto the buses. There was coach drivers who were shot and killed, doing their job, like just... Yeah,
I read an account of a family who hid under the jetty, and the now woman, but she was a young child at the time. She said she remembers looking at her dad's hand, and all of his hair was standing up on end, and his hand was shaking. And she said that's when she knew that something like really, really, really bad was happening, because she'd never seen her dad in that state before or since. Like, you just can't imagine the terror that those people would have felt. There's another account of a survivor who was in the cafe at the time, and he just played dead on the floor, and Martin Bryant stepped over him twice, and he said both times, I just had the most peaceful feeling come over me because I'd resolved myself to the fact that I was going to die.
Oh, God.
And he didn't. So Martin must have believed he was dead and stepped over him both times. And but you can't imagine that terror that man now has lived with for the rest of his entire life.
Oh.
He was interviewed not that long ago, and he said that he still can't sleep properly. He still has flashbacks. He's a much older gentleman now. This will never end for them.
No. I saw an interview of two women who obviously survived, but both their husbands were killed, and they both witnessed each other's situation. They never knew each other at the time, but they're now very close because they both had the similar situation of their husbands protecting them, and who died. You know, it's just heartbreaking.
Oh, I've got goosebumps talking about this.
Oh, it's so horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and to be honest, we haven't even got to the worst of it yet.
No. This is the bit that I found. I mean, all of this is so horrible to think about and look into, but I think it's really important to keep these people's memories alive because so many people were brave in these situations, like those two husbands who were sheltering their wives. Like, what an absolutely heroic act for them. The next, I guess, Martin got back in his car after he obviously decided, I don't know whether this was in his plan, who knows, we won't know, but he gets back in his car and starts driving back up the driveway out of Port Arthur.
Yeah, which apparently he, as he was driving out, he's honking his horn and yelling and firing shots out of the car too.
Yeah.
So even if people are thinking, like there was the people in Port Arthur around the cafe and every area there, and the coaches who are now reeling from his destruction. If you're in any way thinking we're safe now, he made sure people didn't feel safe at any point with that. No. He was, it's that nuisance, like that menace kind of attitude. Like he was, I don't know.
He didn't give a fuck, or he couldn't think further than what he was doing in that instance. But as he was going back up the road, a mother and her two daughters, she stopped him because she thought he was fleeing.
Well, she had run 600 metres to try and get away from where the shooter was. A 3-year-old
and a 6-year-old. He stopped and he killed the mother first, then the 3-year-old. The 6-year-old was hiding behind a tree and he hunted her down and murdered her too. So this was Alana and Madeline Mikak and their mother, and their father, Walter Mikak, subsequently started the Alana and Madeline Foundation, which, look, in the events that unfolded in Port Arthur on the day, I think this is one positive that's potentially come out of it, is this foundation. It's horrible that it even had to come to fruition. It needs to
exist. Yeah.
But, you know, it still exists to this day, and it's going stronger than ever. And, you know, hats off to Walter being left without his daughters and his wife to start such a legacy for them. And I think everyone in Australia knows the Alana and Madeline Foundation. It's everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of schools that use their eSmart program. So basically the idea of the foundation is to protect children from violence. And so they have a buddy program where you buy a buddy bag. So to set up children who come from traumatised backgrounds, etc., to have the things they need to go to school. They do all sorts of amazing work for children. So, I mean, huge kudos to Walter to come out of that situation, which I can't even imagine his grief. I can't, it just breaks me. I think that's the moment of all of this where Martin Bryant is the most evil human being. To be able to, close range, do that to a child.
2 children.
And
the fact that he hunted Alana
not to just, he wasn't in any way in any sort of rush to get away from there. He was there to absolutely destroy the world.
Yep.
Yeah. Utter evil.
His evil knew no bounds. Like, if you're able to do that to a child, what the
You're not human.
No, absolutely not. It's absolutely disgusting.
So yeah.
So he's left Port Arthur now by this point.
Yeah.
And he ends up, I think, okay, so this bit, he's basically driving out and he gets to another service station, does he?
Was it a toll booth?
Toll booth,
yeah.
That's it. I just couldn't remember what was there that he stopped at.
Yeah, it was the toll booth. Because you pay to come into the area to the tourist attraction. Like, yeah, and there was the toll booth on the way out that he's, again, shot more people.
Yep. And he actually, he took a hostage at that point too.
Oh, that could have been the service station because he changed cars. Yeah, so from the toll booth then to the service station where I believe there was 4 people, I think, in the car. 3, 4.
I think initially there were 3 in the first car, but then I think he murdered all them.
Yeah.
Did he?
And then there was a 4th that he took hostage.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So boyfriend and girlfriend couple.
Yeah.
He murdered the girlfriend after torturing her for a bit. Like, it was like, will I kill her? Won't I kill her? Will I kill her? Won't I kill her? There was like something going on there. It was really fucking with them.
Yep.
He then at gunpoint puts the boyfriend in the boot. So he'd switched into their car, puts him in the boot, and then he drives back to Seascape.
Even on the way into Seascape, though, there was actually there was an incident in Tasmania where a lot of police had been called to. There were only 2 police officers available in the area, which says a lot about the demographic of the area too.
Yeah.
So these 2 cops very smartly decided to travel. They were getting the calls. Obviously, people were calling in for 000, like, madly. So they dispersed from where they were in 2 separate vehicles, which I think was very intelligent. The 2 of them, the rule of policing is that you never travel alone. But in this situation, when there were only two cops available, they decided to take two different routes to get to where they were heading towards to make sure they covered all bases. And so when they did arrive, though, and they got to Seascape, I believe they sort of... It's really hard to tell the timing from what I've been reading, but from what I can gather, when they've arrived and found where Mount Martin is at Seascape, they have tried to ambush him a little bit, but they've ended up in a ditch to escape him shooting at them, and they were stuck in that ditch for hours. He would literally pot them. Any time they moved or tried to get out of there, he would fire shots off at them, which... as we were saying, that long range rifle that he had, he could shoot them from all sorts of, from anywhere to try and hit them. And he did have a scope on it.
Yeah.
So they don't really know, they don't know the extent of his ability with the rifle either, of if he did have the skills to be able to, sight and aim and get from that far away, or exactly how far away he even was. Because they couldn't, if they stuck their head up, bang, he'd shoot at them. Yeah. So I can't even imagine that either. They had to sit it out for so long.
But they were able to radio to their control, their boss, I guess.
But yeah, because by this stage, they've got on the radio to Victoria, and there's the special operations unit coming over, which are
they were at Essendon Airport within 40 minutes or something of in an aeroplane. Yeah, within 40 minutes of
which
getting
is only a half-hour flight down from Melbourne to Tassie. Yeah. So they were there pretty quickly. When you think, that to bring in, you think, Tassie, this island that's far away, but it's not that far, really. Yeah.
Did you see an interview with the special operations officers?
I listened to the podcast version of that. What's it called? I Was Actually There. Yeah. It's a really good series.
It's an ABC series. It's phenomenal. There's lots of different...
Yeah, I believe that was
episodes.
episode 1.
It was episode 1. It's really brilliant, and I highly recommend people go and look at it because it really gives a human element to all of this.
Yeah.
What lovely men. Just... incredible men. But he said that I found this actually very funny. He said they had no jurisdiction in Tasmania, so when they arrived they had to be sworn in.
Yep.
And they couldn't find a Bible anywhere. Haha, lol. And so he's like, just get a phone book, it's got all the same letters and numbers in it.
I love their enthusiasm of let's just get this done, so we can get into there and help these people. That was,
and they knew exactly what they were doing. They were trained for this.
Yes.
Not that we'd ever seen anything like this in Australia up until that point, but
thank God.
They were trained. And, I think what incredible human beings they were. They, set up a post. They got to work. This particular officer, he said at the end of all of it, when it was all wrapped up, he rang his mum, and his mum said, "Why didn't you just shoot him?" And he said, "Because I'm not like him. I'm not as bad as him. That would make me just as bad as him if I were to shoot him." And
that was the thing. Their rule is that they're legal bound of what they are down to do. They're only allowed to make that shot if someone's being directly threatened, or if he's aiming and shooting at them. So they followed all the protocols and the laws around what they can do, that's what they stuck to that, because I'm sure plenty of people would have just pot shot, bang, gone. But
so this siege, I guess, happened like overnight. So the police didn't know. They assumed he had a hostage. In fact, they knew he'd taken at least one person from the service station.
And they didn't know.
They thought that he had 3 hostages.
Well, he told them that he had 3 because, well, they knew that the Martins were in there, but they had no idea if they were alive or dead.
That's right.
So, so he did say to the cops that he wanted he would take one hostage with them. He wanted a helicopter to go to Adelaide. Don't know why Adelaide, but anyway, who'd want to go to Adelaide? No, don't come for me. Yeah, so he wanted to take one hostage with him to Adelaide, and that he'd let the other 2 hostages go, but they were already dead.
It all sort of, I mean, overnight, these officers were at the command post. What one of the officers said was they were a bit close to start with, so they decided to move a kilometre back up the road.
The real specialist in this kind of situation rocked up and went, I think we might move the command centre back, because he started shooting at them, I think, from there.
Yeah.
And
he could have gotten them. It was within firing range.
Yes.
So luckily the specialists came in.
Yeah. Guys, I think, not right.
Yeah. But they were there until like 7:30 in the morning when they actually started to see smoke coming from the house.
He did some pretty odd things overnight though too. And this guy, it was so interesting listening to him saying how literally they will lay there in their filth, their own filth, to just focus on through that site on what his job is.
Yep.
And so they could see him doing various things throughout the night, even though we're talking hundreds of metres away. But they knew what he was doing, but he did some very odd things overnight. Did you read what I read? What went on overnight?
I have a vague idea.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into it?
No, you go.
He just did a lot of strange things. At what point do you think do you think he killed Greg? I think was the name of the hostage. Is that right?
Mr. Pears.
Yeah.
I think he was. I don't know. I don't know when he would have done that. At what point? Because the thing is, he simply had no control over himself. There were plenty of gunshots firing at the police, etc., that at some point they couldn't pinpoint, when hearing a gunshot go off to know that that's when he would have killed him.
That's right.
There's no way of telling that. I honestly think that he's probably done that pretty early on. I don't know that.
I suspect so as well.
Yeah, depending on what leverage he thought he had. But I mean,
feel like he always knew he was going to kill him.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about someone's brain that we really can't. There's not that ability to.
He didn't plan.
No, I don't think
one step ahead. No.
I don't know that he knew from what he was going to do from that point on.
He was doing weird stuff through the windows, and he was popping his head up and doing just some very.
He was taunting them and everything.
Yeah, very odd things.
I did read that he was naked, running around and stuff.
Well, he was naked when he came out of the house once. So at sort of 7:30 in the morning, the police see smoke billowing out from the house, and I think. Actually, they'd had phone contact with him as well. So the cottage had a cordless phone only, and he was. You can listen to the actual recordings of the phone calls online, and he's just having these regular old chats with the police officers, and they're like, "So, who have you got there with you, and what are they doing, and have you fed them, and how much water have you had to drink today?" And just really
trying to keep it calm,
trying to keep the situation under control.
Yeah,
but. At some point, the cordless handset, the battery died. He never redocked it.
They tried to get him to dock it that many times. Yeah, he would not do it.
No. And so once the battery went dead, they had no more communication into the house. And that obviously put them into sort of even more of a hyper-vigilant mode.
Yeah.
7:30 in the morning, they see smoke billowing out of the house, and Martin Bryant, the special operations, the Victorian Special Operations cop says, I could tell it was a male because I saw his genitalia running at me. So he was naked when he ran out of the house.
Yeah.
I believe potentially covered in his own filth as well. He was.
Yeah. I did hear that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking.
Or what was going on in that house for that time.
Yeah.
So just horrific stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, the man's name was Glenn, not Greg.
Glenn.
Yep.
Glenn Pears.
Yep. So Martin sustained some fire injuries, some burns, no gunshot wounds at all to his body, which, as I said, goes to the integrity of the police officers who were managing that scene. To this day, the motives are not clear. We have no idea why Martin Bryant did this.
No.
Why he went to Port Arthur, we don't know. He was at one point banned from Broad Arrow Cafe because he was weird and he would make patrons feel like really uncomfortable. And so they'd banned him before, so they don't know whether or not. And he used to walk his family dogs around Port Arthur and for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end, and to the point where he was like an absolute nuisance. And the security guards who were there would say to him, "Come on, mate, it's time to move on. Like, you've been walking around the gardens for, the grounds for hours." So maybe he had like a weird fascination with the place. I really don't know.
Or was it more to do with Japanese tourists and wasps that he had some sort of weird obsession with? I don't know. I think more about the fact that he knew it was a place where there was going to be a lot of people in a small space.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else was it about that place that he chose it?
Don't know. When he was interviewed by police, it's disgusting. The interview is awful. Mm-hmm. He laughs. He looks disinterested.
Yeah.
They say to him, "You know, you murdered 35 people." And he goes, "That's sad, isn't it? That's horrendous."
Yeah, there's a real disconnect there, and a real, like, I mean, you see the mental, like, not mental illness. He doesn't have mental, but intellectual disability. You kind of see there that disconnect.
He's absolutely got a mental illness as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably, yeah, you're probably right. But like, there was one moment where he thinks the camera's off.
Yeah,
and he says, "Guess you will find the person who did this." Me, like,
yeah,
it's me. Really, and then and the guy goes, and then he sort of says to the cop, "You probably should have had your cameras on for that, And the cop was like, "We do actually still have the cameras running," and you can see this look on his face, kind of change of like, "Huh, crap."
Yeah,
yeah.
He also says to them, he's like, "Oh, you see, if people didn't do these unfortunate things, you guys wouldn't have a job."
I find that so interesting because the cop really literally just goes, "You're not wrong." And the thing is, it's not like these cops do this job because, they want people to do these actions. A world where we don't need police to investigate these things would be amazing.
Yes.
But unfortunately, there are people that commit these horrendous acts.
Although, I mean, there was a massive reduction after this because, I think two positive things came out of this. The first positive thing being the Alana and Madeline Foundation,
yep.
and the second positive thing being gun reform in Australia.
Big time.
There was public outrage at the time. How did this person get these guns? How did he buy all this ammunition? Our Prime Minister at the time was John Howard, and he really took immediate action on this.
Immediate, within 12 days of this occurring.
Yep.
He was like on it and said, "This cannot happen."
Yeah, so he instigated a buyback scheme. Yep, and there's images online as well of this. And I actually remember this as a kid, of tens of thousands of guns getting crushed. So basically the government you had to surrender your weapons. So this was semi-automatic rifles.
So only certain ones that were listed,
Yep.
and then they also changed the laws around how to access guns. So it's not doesn't mean that people do not own guns in Australia.
Yep.
People own guns, but you need to have a legitimate reason and also meet criteria to be able to own a gun.
And also you can't just go out and buy one. There's a
waiting
lot of criteria.
periods.
There's waiting periods.
Yeah.
You have to have them stored appropriately.
Yep.
There's lots and lots of conditions that need to be met now in order for an Australian person or Australian resident to acquire a gun. It really changed the landscape of our nation in that way. So in the preceding 18 years to Port Arthur, there had been 13 mass shootings in Australia, a mass shooting being of four or more people. Since 1996 in this gun reform, we have not had one. Well, actually,
Depends on how you.
It depends on how it's defined.
Because if it's family within a household, then there's more. But if it's public, there's none.
Yep. Zero.
So we don't have the school shootings, etc., that America have on a regular basis. Yeah. I have to say, I'm not a big one on politics and politicians, right? But this is one act that a politician did that is so, I feel like, has impacted our society in such a positive way that John Howard is like the only Prime Minister that I really connect with in terms of that I have a whole lot of respect for. Any other politician,
Take them or leave them.
Take them or leave them, couldn't care less. But John Howard, to the point where I remember being, it would have been in 2006, I think, Commonwealth Games. So this is this is 10 years past this all occurring.
Yep.
I was at the Commonwealth Games and he just happened to, I was coming out of the hockey and he was going into the netball sort of stuff. And I realised that the crowd was gathering kind of thing that somebody was around and kind of like, celebrity, whatever, that kind of thing. And then when I realised it was John Howard, I was like, no, I'm going over. I shook his hand. And it's a moment where I kind of go, I'm really proud of Australia to make those decisions, and that this man was the one who did that. That I really resonate with him in terms of that way, that I was like, no, this is someone I want to shake a hand of. And I always think of that moment, like that we are so lucky to live in Australia where we do have strict gun laws, because to send my kids to school in America, I don't think I could.
I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't. I agree with you and all of the things that you were saying, although I would like to attack John Howard's eyebrows with some eyebrow scissors. That's
you and your eyebrows situation. See,
yeah.
I can see the difference in the videos. Lack of care of eyebrows, care for eyebrows.
And look, he was a bit embarrassing. You know, you watch some interviews with him and you think, oh God.
Yeah.
But
and there's certain things about him that
oh yeah, totally.
he did do. But this was
Thank
one thing
God he was our Prime Minister at the time.
I don't think any other Prime Minister could have done what he did. And
no.
Because, I mean, there's images of gun nut people, you know, with him with a bulletproof vest on, with them protesting around what he was doing. I mean, I have to say, the Venn diagram of gun nuts and conspiracy theorists, well, it's like a full circle.
I was going to say, it's like fully overlap.
What is with that? Yeah, so I mean, he did something that, I mean, I know in America they've tried a number of times to bring these things, you know, and try and do it in ways, because they never get anywhere. Because
no, it's their Second Amendment right. If you want to go a little deeper into this, there's some really, really good stuff out there.
Yeah.
But in particular, there is a John Oliver piece. So he's a British journalist, essentially. He's a comedian as well. But he interviews American parliamentarians or whatever about gun rights.
Yeah.
And then he interviews Australians. So he interviews John Howard. He interviews a politician from Queensland who basically sacrificed his entire career to support John Howard's reform. And the juxtaposition is incredible.
Yeah.
The Americans are like, yeah, totally. We should 100% have our right, and we shouldn't have to wait even an hour to get a gun if we want to buy a gun. That's our right to buy a gun.
Yeah.
I know this is getting a little political now, but it is a really interesting thing. So just Google John Oliver gun reform and watch. It's a 3-part little mini series. Go and watch it.
He's just so well with that stuff. I enjoy it.
It's really good. Another thing is what we were talking about before is watching I Was Actually There on the ABC. That is an awesome series as well. And the other thing that I watched that was entertaining, and it was based on truth, but it was a dramatization. It's called Night Tram, which is Martin backwards, and he used to be teased. And that was sort of like a nickname that kids called him when he was younger. Another really good little mini series to watch if you want to sort of look at more about Martin's early life and what led up to Port Arthur. The actual Port Arthur massacre isn't sort of part of that series, but there's so much information out there about this and, you know, everything that's happened in Australia since, with thanks to the gun reforms.
Yeah. I think between, you know, gun reforms, which I think we've got right in Australia. Now, what we need to get right is mental health and also diagnosing and et cetera of these disorders in people correctly. Then we might be able to intervene better with these horrific.
Earlier?
Earlier. Like, I mean, it's not to say that just because you behave oddly that you're going to be a person who's going to murder someone or, you know, commit a complete massacre. But that is one way of preventing horrific things that can occur. And so I think we're, you know, slowly getting there. As we say, we're definitely our kids' generation are better again at accepting people and making sure that then mental health isn't impacted by difference. Yeah, but we've got a long way to go through still.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Just in closing, I think for us as Australians, this was sort of nation defining. The fact that we had these nationwide gun reforms following this horrific event that is so etched into the minds of all Australians. I know homicides using guns have been decreased by 60%. Suicides using guns have basically dropped off.
Yeah.
And as we said before, there haven't been any publicly mass shootings since. So thank God we live where we live.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's something that, I'm very proud of Australia for.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's probably a good note to leave it on. Do you have any shout outs for this week, Meg?
Well, there is one actually.
Who was that?
On YouTube, it was a person by the name of, I've got Amaya Rice, I believe it was. She's been commenting a fair bit on our YouTube clip of the Menendez brothers that was has been released recently. And so we're just loving that the comments are coming through and chatting back and forth. Love that. Love it.
Yeah, love it. So please keep commenting and give us a like and a follow and a chat. We're more than happy to engage on social media.
For sure.
You know, drop us a line on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok,
yeah. Any of the socials, we're out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast app you're using to listen to us, that also helps us out to make sure that we're getting out there to more people. So thank you for everyone who's done that so far. But yeah, join us for the next one. You know, come and join us for that next one by hitting that follow button.
Yep, sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, well, have a great week, everybody, and thanks again for joining.
See everyone. Bye. Stay curious, crime besties.